I should have listened to my grandmother. She always said, never follow Waruinu at night. But that night, I did. And now I wish I hadn't, because I saw something no one should ever see. It was the way the shadows moved, alive, creeping toward her like they obeyed her command. I hid behind a tree, my hands trembling, my breath caught in my throat. Waruinu was standing in the clearing, her back to me, chanting words I couldn't understand. The air felt heavy, cold, and menacing. Suddenly, she turned. Her eyes glowed red in the moonlight, and her face wasn't hers anymore. It was stretched, twisted, with a smile too wide for any human. I know you're there, she said in a voice that didn't belong to her. It began weeks earlier. Waruinu was always strange, but people tolerated her because she was young and clever. She knew how to talk her way out of trouble, and she never feared anyone, not even the village elders. But after her father died, something in her changed. She stopped going to the market, stopped playing with other children. Instead, she would sit for hours by the old tree on the hill, whispering to herself. People said they heard her talking to someone, but no one ever saw who. Then, strange things began to happen. The first was Wanjiru, a girl our age who had argued with Waruinu about a broken clay pot. The next morning, Wanjiru woke up screaming. Her legs were covered in deep scratches, as if she had been attacked by wild animals. But there were no tracks, no signs of anything near her hut. Next was Mzi Okelo, the old man who shouted at Waruinu for walking through his farm. His goats started dying one by one, their bodies shriveled and grey, as if something had sucked the life out of them. By then, the villagers were whispering about black magic. My grandmother warned me to stay away from Waruinu, but I didn't listen. I thought they were just stories. One evening, I saw her walking toward the hill where the old tree stood. I don't know what made me follow her. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the way the air seemed to pull me after her. She didn't see me. I hid behind the trees, watching as she stood in the clearing. She placed something on the ground, a bundle wrapped in cloth. She began to chant, her voice low and strange. The shadows around her began to shift, crawling like living things. I wanted to run, but my legs wouldn't move. I stayed frozen as one of the shadows stretched toward the bundle. It unwrapped itself, revealing a chicken, its throat already cut. The shadow touched it, and the chicken twitched. Its eyes opened, glowing red. That's when Waruinu turned. Her face wasn't human anymore. Her eyes were bright and burning, her skin pale and tight. She smiled at me, and I felt my body go cold. I told you, she said, her voice echoing like many voices speaking at once. I see everything. I don't remember how I escaped. One moment I was staring at her, and the next I was running, my feet barely touching the ground. I didn't stop until I reached my grandmother's hut. I told her everything, but she didn't seem surprised. She just shook her head and whispered, "The tree. It gave her power. But it will take more if we don't stop her." That was the last peaceful night in our village. The next morning, Waruinu was gone. But the shadows went. They lingered near the hill, dark and waiting. I know this isn't over. Waruinu will come back. She always does.